They demanded our surrender. Humanity answered with fire. The stars disappeared one by one. Commander Minho stood on the bridge of the UNS Defiance, watching his screen as massive shapes blocked out the light. 300 alien warships had just arrived in Earth's orbit. Each vessel was enormous, easily 10 times larger than any ship humanity had ever built. The fleet stretched across space like a dark wall of metal and power. Minho had known this day would come. For 20 years, humanity had been expanding across the galaxy, claiming new worlds and building colonies. They had met other alien species during that time. Some were friendly. Most were not. But none had been like this. None had arrived with such overwhelming force. The communication console beeped. A face appeared on the main screen. The alien was unlike anything most humans had seen before. Its body seemed made of living crystal, constantly shifting colors from blue to purple to dark red. Tall and imposing, it looked down at the camera with eyes that held no warmth. "I am High Arbiter Valthek of the Galactic Confederation," the alien said. Its voice was translated into every human language simultaneously, broadcast across every screen on Earth and in every colony. "Humanity has violated the ancient laws of this galaxy. You have expanded without permission. You have claimed worlds that do not belong to you. You have refused to acknowledge our authority." Minho clenched his fists. He had read the reports. The Confederation ruled over 7 different alien species. They controlled thousands of worlds. Every species they encountered had either joined them willingly or been conquered. There was never a third option. "We are civilized beings," Valthek continued. "We do not wish to destroy you. Therefore, we offer you a choice. You have 48 hours to surrender completely. Dismantle your military fleets. Abandon your colonies. Return to your homeworld and submit to Confederation rule. Do this and your species will survive as part of our great union." The crystal alien leaned closer to the camera. "Refuse and we will erase you from existence. Every human world will burn. Your species will become a warning to others who dare to challenge us. 48 hours. Choose wisely." The transmission ended. For a moment, there was silence across the entire planet. Then chaos erupted. Minho could hear the panic in the voices of his crew. He could imagine the fear spreading through cities on Earth, through orbital stations, through distant colonies light years away. His communication panel lit up. "Commander Minho, report to Emergency Council immediately." It was President Jiyon herself. Within an hour, every major leader on Earth had gathered in the secure bunker beneath Geneva. The room was filled with presidents, generals, admirals, and scientists. President Jiyon sat at the head of the table, her face pale but determined. Next to her was Admiral Daehyun, the commander of all Earth's defense forces. "We need options," Jiyon said, looking around the room. "Tell me we have options." A general from the Asian Defense Coalition spoke first. "Madam President, we've analyzed their fleet. Their technology is centuries ahead of ours. Their shields can withstand our strongest weapons. Their firepower could level our cities in minutes. If we fight, we lose." "Then we surrender," said another leader, a representative from the European Union. "We negotiate terms. We find a way to preserve humanity under their rule." "And become slaves?" Admiral Daehyun's voice cut through the room like a knife. The old admiral stood up, his gray hair and scarred face telling stories of a lifetime in service. "I've read the reports on the Confederation. Every species under their control has lost its independence. They control everything: reproduction, economy, military, culture. Is that the future you want for humanity?" "Better than extinction," the European representative shot back. Daehyun smiled, but there was no humor in it. "Maybe, but let me show you something first." He pulled up a holographic display in the center of the room. "For the last 20 years since we first encountered hostile aliens, we've been preparing. Not just building ships and weapons, but thinking about how to fight an enemy more advanced than us." The hologram showed Earth's oceans. Deep beneath the water, hidden bases glowed on the map. Then it showed Mars, where massive underground facilities had been carved into the planet's crust. Then the outer colonies, where weapons platforms floated in the dark between worlds. "We've built weapons," Daehyun said quietly. "Not pretty weapons. Not honorable weapons. We've built the kind of weapons humans are good at making. The kind that come from thousands of years of killing each other." He pulled up schematics. Nuclear mines disguised as space debris. Antimatter reactors powerful enough to crack a moon. Biological agents designed to target specific alien species. Chemical weapons that could poison entire atmospheres. Kinetic missiles that could accelerate to near light speed. The Confederation thinks they're fighting a primitive species. Daehyun continued. They think we'll surrender because we're outmatched technologically. But they don't understand something important about humans. We're not the strongest species. We're not the smartest, but we might be the meanest. When you corner a human, when you threaten everything they love, they don't surrender. They bite back. President Jian stared at the display. If we fight with these weapons, millions will die. Maybe billions. Yes, Daehyun agreed. But if we surrender, humanity as we know it ends anyway. At least this way we go down fighting. At least this way we make them pay for every inch. The room fell silent. Each leader knew what this meant. War against an enemy they couldn't beat. Death on a scale hard to imagine. The possible end of human civilization. But they also knew Daehyun was right. Humans had always been stubborn. Throughout their history, they had fought impossible battles. They had charged into gunfire, faced overwhelming odds, and sometimes, just sometimes, they had won. Not because they were stronger, but because they refused to quit. Jian looked at each face in the room. Then she made her decision. We'll send our response in 48 hours. Admiral Daehyun, prepare every weapon we have. Commander Minho, get the fleet into position. Everyone else, evacuate the major cities. If we're going to do this, we do it properly. She stood up, her voice strong and clear. They came here expecting us to bow. They thought we would see their ships and surrender. They don't know humans very well. We'll show them what happens when you threaten Earth. 48 hours later, the Confederation fleet waited for humanity's answer. High Arbiter Valthek sat on his command throne, confident that the primitive species would see reason. Every species before them had surrendered when faced with such power. The response came as a single transmission. One word broadcast in every human language, from every human world, from every human ship. No. Valthek stared at the screen in disbelief. Then he smiled. If the humans wanted to die as fools, he would grant them that wish. He gave the order. The Confederation fleet moved forward, weapons charging. But deep in Earth's oceans, in hidden bases across the solar system, on silent ships drifting in the dark, humans watched and waited. In their hands, they held weapons their ancestors would have called monstrous. In their hearts, they carried a simple truth that had survived since the dawn of humanity. When someone threatens your home, you don't surrender. You fight. They demanded our surrender. Humanity answered with fire. The Confederation fleet moved into attack formation. High Arbiter Valthek watched from his flagship as his 300 warships spread across Earth's orbit like predators surrounding wounded prey. He had done this dozens of times before with other species. The pattern was always the same. Show overwhelming force, demand surrender, and when they refused, make an example of their home world. Usually 1 or 2 destroyed cities was enough. Then the survivors would beg to join the Confederation. Begin bombardment, Valthek ordered. Target their major population centers. Let's make this quick. The fleet's weapons charged. Massive plasma cannons that could melt through mountains powered up. Targeting systems locked onto New York, London, Beijing, Tokyo, Mumbai. In seconds, millions would die. In minutes, humanity would break. But in the dark space between Valthek's ships and Earth, something stirred. Thousands of objects that had appeared to be ordinary space debris suddenly activated. Old satellite fragments, broken asteroid chunks, pieces of destroyed stations that had floated in orbit for years. All of them came to life at once. Captain Soman sat in the stealth ship Ghost of Terra, hidden behind the moon. Her fingers hovered over the control panel. She thought about her daughter on Earth, probably hiding in a bunker right now. She thought about her parents who had died when the first hostile aliens attacked a human colony 20 years ago. She thought about every person she had ever loved. All units, she said into the communication channel. Operation Hellfire is go. Make them pay! She pressed the button, space erupted in fire. The debris around the Confederation fleet wasn't debris at all. Each piece contained a nuclear fusion warhead, carefully hidden and positioned over the last 6 months. Thousands of bombs detonated simultaneously, creating a sphere of nuclear fire that consumed everything inside it. 40 Confederation ships vanished in the first 3 seconds. Their shields, designed to stop energy weapons and missiles, couldn't handle the sudden explosion of nuclear fire from every direction at once. The massive vessels broke apart, their crews dying before they even understood what was happening. Valthek's ship rocked from the blast wave. Alarm screamed. His tactical officer was shouting damage reports. "Sir, we've lost 40 ships. The humans, they hid nuclear weapons in orbit. They've been planning this." For the first time in his long life, Valthek felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries. Fear. These primitive creatures had tricked him. They had let the fleet get close, had waited until the perfect moment and struck first. "All ships return fire," he roared. "Destroy everything!" The remaining Confederation vessels opened fire. Plasma beams lanced down toward Earth, but the planet was ready. Massive defense platforms hidden in orbital stations and on the moon activated. Antimatter reactors, humanity's most powerful and dangerous technology, powered weapons that met the alien fire with equally devastating force. The battle became chaos. Human fighters, small and fast, poured out from hidden bays on the dark side of the moon. Hundreds of them, like angry insects, swarmed around the massive Confederation ships. The aliens tried to shoot them down, but for every fighter destroyed, 2 more appeared. Lieutenant Hyunwoo led Eagle Squadron through the maze of fire and debris. His hands moved automatically across the controls as he dodged plasma beams that could vaporize his fighter in an instant. Around him, his squadron mates flew with the same desperate precision. "Eagle 3, target the shield generator on that carrier," he shouted. "I'm out of missiles, Eagle Leader." "Then ram it." There was a pause. Then Eagle 3 responded. "Copy that." "It's been an honor, sir." Hyunwoo watched as Eagle 3 accelerated directly at the massive alien carrier. The fighter crashed into the shield generator in a ball of fire. The shields flickered and died. Immediately, 20 other human fighters poured through the gap, firing everything they had at the exposed hull. This was humanity's strategy. The Confederation had bigger ships, better shields, more powerful weapons, but humans were willing to do something the aliens couldn't understand. They were willing to die, not because they were suicidal, but because they knew that if they lost this battle, everyone they loved would die anyway. Better to go down fighting, taking as many enemies as possible. The Confederation had never faced an enemy like this. In their thousands of years of conquest, every species had valued survival above all else. They fought to live. But humans fought to win, and if winning meant dying, they accepted that trade. Another Confederation ship exploded. Then another. Valthek watched in growing horror as his fleet, the pride of the Confederation, was being torn apart by these primitive beings. His tactical display showed fighter after fighter crashing into his ships. It showed human vessels with damaged engines accelerating into Confederation carriers, using themselves as kinetic weapons. It showed defense platforms continuing to fire even as they were destroyed, their final shots taking enemy ships with them. "Sir, we need to retreat," his second-in-command urged. "We've lost 90 ships. This isn't a battle, it's a slaughter." Valthek wanted to refuse. Every instinct told him to press the attack, to show these humans the price of resistance. But he was watching his fleet die. In 6 hours of combat, humanity had done what no other species had managed in 1,000 years. They had hurt the Confederation. "All ships fall back beyond lunar orbit," he ordered, his voice bitter with rage and shame. "Regroup and prepare for orbital bombardment from distance." The Confederation fleet pulled back, limping away from Earth. Behind them, they left the wreckage of 97 warships and tens of thousands of dead crew members. The humans had paid a price too. Half of their orbital defenses were destroyed. 3 million civilians had died when some Confederation fire got through. Entire cities were damaged, but Earth still stood. The human fleet, battered and bloodied, regrouped around their homeworld. Commander Minho stood on the bridge of the Defiance, looking at the casualty reports. So many dead, so many ships destroyed. But they had won the first battle. Against all odds, humanity had faced the Confederation's might and survived. "Sir, we're receiving transmissions from the colonies," his communication officer reported. "They want to know what to do. The Confederation has ships moving toward them." Minho felt his blood run cold. Of course. Valthek wouldn't attack Earth directly again, not after this humiliation. He would strike at the colonies, the places that couldn't defend themselves like Earth could. "Send a warning to all colonies," Minho ordered. "Tell them the Confederation is coming. Tell them to prepare." On his flagship beyond the moon, Valthek stared at Earth with hatred burning in his crystal eyes. The humans had made a fool of him. They had destroyed nearly 1/3 of his fleet. But he would teach them a lesson they would never forget. He pulled up a star map showing all the human colonies, farming worlds, mining outposts, research stations, hundreds of settlements scattered across dozens of star systems. Most of them had no military protection. They were defenseless. "We'll burn their colonies one by one," Valthek said to his officers. "We'll make them watch as everything they've built turns to ash. Then, when they're broken and desperate, when they're begging us to stop, we'll come back to Earth and finish this." He selected the first target, a colony called New Jeju, an agricultural world with 200,000 human colonists. No warships, no defense platforms, easy prey. "Set course for New Jeju," Valthek commanded. "It's time to show humanity the real cost of defiance." In the cold darkness between stars, the Confederation fleet turned away from Earth and jumped to hyperspace. They left behind a world that had just learned a terrible truth about itself. When pushed to the edge, when faced with extinction, humanity didn't just fight back. They fought dirty. They fought mean. They fought with every brutal lesson learned from 10,000 years of killing each other. The Confederation had started this war expecting an easy victory. What they got instead was a glimpse of why humans had survived every disaster their own planet had thrown at them. They were the species that refused to die. They demanded our surrender. Humanity answered with Fire Colony Director Yunji was reviewing crop reports when the emergency alarm sounded. The peaceful morning on New Jeju was shattered by a sound that every colonist dreaded. Red lights flashed throughout the colony's administration building. Her screen changed to show an emergency broadcast from Earth. The message was simple and terrifying. "Confederation fleet detected. Estimated arrival time 90 minutes. No human warships available to defend. Evacuate if possible." Yunji stared at the message. 90 minutes. She looked out her window at the colony below. New Jeju was home to 200,000 people. Farmers, engineers, teachers, children. They had spent 15 years building this world, turning empty land into fields of crops that fed a dozen human colonies. This was their home. And in 90 minutes, the Confederation would arrive to destroy it. She grabbed her communication device. "This is Director Yunji to all department heads. Emergency meeting in the command center now." Within minutes, her top people gathered. There was Dr. Junho, the colony's chief engineer, Taejin, head of the mining operations, Nari, who managed the orbital platforms, and dozens of others, all looking at her with fear in their eyes. "Can we evacuate?" someone asked. Yunji shook her head. "We have 20 cargo ships. Each can carry maybe 500 people if we pack them in. That's 10,000 people out of 200,000. We'd need 20 hours to get everyone off-world, and we have 90 minutes. Then what do we do?" Nari asked. "Just wait here to die?" Dr. Junho stood up, his face grim. "No, we fight." "Fight with what?" someone shouted. "We're farmers and miners. We have no weapons, no military training, nothing." Junho pulled up a holographic display of the colony. "We have mining explosives, thousands of tons of them. We have industrial chemicals in the processing plants. We have reactor cores in every major building. We have fuel for the ships." He looked around the room. "We have everything we need to turn this entire colony into a weapon." The room went silent. Everyone understood what he was suggesting. They couldn't save the colony, but they could make sure the Confederation paid dearly for taking it. Yunji felt something cold settle in her chest. She thought about the children in the schools, the families in their homes, the future they had all dreamed of building here. All of it was about to end. But Junho was right. If they were going to die, they could at least make it hurt. "Do it," she said quietly. "Put every explosive we have in key locations. Wire the chemical plants to blow. Set the reactors to overload. Everyone who wants to evacuate can take the cargo ships. Everyone else, we have work to do." The colony erupted into controlled chaos. Miners hauled explosives from storage and placed them in buildings throughout the settlement. Engineers rigged the chemical plants with timers. Technicians set reactor cores to critical levels. Parents put their children on cargo ships, kissing them goodbye and telling them to be brave. Some people chose to stay, some because they were needed for the preparations, others because this was their home and they refused to abandon it. Yunji watched the cargo ships launch, carrying 10,000 colonists to safety. 190,000 remained. The Confederation fleet dropped out of hyperspace right on schedule. 30 warships, more than enough to flatten a defenseless colony. High Arbiter Valthek didn't even bother with a warning this time. He simply gave the order to deploy ground forces. The Confederation preferred to capture colonies intact when possible. Destroyed worlds had no value, so instead of orbital bombardment, they sent down troop transports filled with soldiers. They would occupy the colony, arrest the leaders, and turn the population into workers for the Confederation. The transports landed in the colony's main square. Thousands of Confederation soldiers marched out, weapons ready. They were met by silence. The streets were empty. The buildings seemed abandoned. The soldiers spread out, moving through the colony in formation. They entered homes, offices, schools. Everything appeared normal. There were signs of recent evacuation, but much of the colony's infrastructure was intact. Valthek watched from orbit with satisfaction. The humans had fled without a fight. Good. This colony would serve the Confederation well. Then the first bomb went off. The explosion tore through the center of the colony, vaporizing 100 Confederation soldiers instantly. Before the others could react, a second explosion erupted. Then a third. Then a dozen more. The entire colony became a chain reaction of fire and destruction. Soldiers ran for cover, but there was nowhere safe. Every building was rigged to explode. Chemical plants ignited, sending clouds of toxic gas rolling through the streets. Reactor cores overloaded, creating bursts of radiation that killed everything nearby. Even the ground itself had been mined. Everywhere the Confederation soldiers stepped, death waited. In the administration building, Yunji sat at her desk with Dr. Junho and a dozen others who had stayed behind. They watched the security cameras showing the Confederation forces being torn apart by their traps. They heard the screams, saw the panic. They're trying to retreat to their ships, Junho observed. Yunji nodded. She pressed a button on her console. The fuel storage tanks near the landing zone exploded, destroying the grounded troop transports in massive fireballs. Black smoke rose into the sky. In orbit, Valthek watched in horror as his ground forces died. Out of 5,000 soldiers sent down, less than 1,000 managed to reach the transport ships that were still airborne. The colony was completely destroyed, burning so hot that the flames were visible from space. His communication officer was receiving a transmission. "Sir, it's broadcasting on all frequencies. It's coming from the colony. Put it through," Valthek ordered. A human face appeared on screen. Dr. Junho, covered in dust and blood from a nearby explosion, stared into the camera. Behind him, the colony was collapsing in flames. "My name is Dr. Junho," he said calmly. "I'm a colonial engineer. I've spent 15 years building this world. I've watched children grow up here. I've seen families build homes. This was a peaceful place. You destroyed that." He leaned closer to the camera. "You thought we would surrender. You thought you could just take what we built. Let me teach you something about humans. We're stubborn. When you corner us, when you take everything from us, we don't surrender. We make sure you can't enjoy your victory." Junho held up a detonator. "You can have our worlds, but you'll inherit only ashes. Every colony you attack will do what we've done. We will deny you everything. We will make every inch of human space cost you blood and fire. Remember New Jeju. Remember the price of fighting humans." He pressed the detonator. The administration building exploded and the transmission cut to static. Valthek stared at the burning world below. He had captured nothing, gained nothing, lost 5,000 soldiers and accomplished nothing except creating a graveyard. And across human space the message was spreading. Every colony heard what New Jeju had done. Every settlement saw the price the Confederation had paid. And they all prepared to do the same thing if the enemy came for them. But not everyone chose to die defending empty colonies. Commander Minho had launched a desperate rescue operation. Hundreds of civilian ships, every cargo hauler and passenger liner humanity could gather, raced through Confederation-controlled space toward the outer colonies. Their mission was simple: evacuate as many people as possible before the enemy arrived. Rear Admiral Nari commanded the small fleet of warships protecting the evacuation convoy. She had 12 destroyers against a Confederation battle group of 40 ships. The math was impossible, but that had never stopped humans before. The Confederation fleet intercepted them near the Titan 7 mining colony. Admiral Nari watched as the enemy ships moved to surround her small force. She opened a channel to the civilian ships. "This is Admiral Nari. Continue to the colony and evacuate everyone you can. My fleet will buy you time." "Admiral, you can't fight 40 ships with 12. A civilian captain protested. "I don't need to win," Nari replied calmly. "I just need to slow them down. Now go." That's an order. The civilian ships accelerated toward Titan 7. Nari turned to her crew. All ships, attack formation. We're going to do what humans do best. We're going to be annoying. Her destroyers scattered, forcing the Confederation to split their fleet to chase them. Each human ship fought not to destroy the enemy, but to draw them away from the civilian convoy. They dodged, weaved, fired when possible, and led the Confederation on a deadly dance through the asteroid field. One by one, Nari's ships were destroyed. But each destruction bought minutes for the evacuation fleet. When her own ship's engines failed and the hull was breached in a dozen places, Nari gave her final order. Set collision course for their flagship. Full speed. Her remaining crew strapped in as the destroyer accelerated toward the massive Confederation command ship. The enemy tried to shoot them down, but the destroyer was already falling apart. It didn't matter. Nari held the controls steady, her eyes locked on the target. The destroyer hit the Confederation flagship at full speed, punching through its shields and tearing a massive hole in its side. Both ships were destroyed in the collision, taking thousands of lives in an instant. But at Titan 7, every single civilian ship made it to the colony and escaped with refugees. They demanded our surrender. Humanity answered with fire. The 24-hour deadline was the longest day in galactic history. On every Confederation homeworld, citizens looked up at their skies with fear. Governments scrambled. Military leaders argued. Parents held their children and wondered if tomorrow would come. High Arbiter Valtek sat in the Confederation Council chamber, surrounded by representatives from all 7 member species. The room that usually echoed with confident declarations was now filled with frightened voices. "We must destroy Earth immediately," one representative demanded. "Show these humans they cannot threaten us." "And doom our own worlds?" Another shot back. "Those ships will detonate if we attack Earth. Billions will die." The Calxier representative, an elderly bird-like being named Keleth, spoke quietly. "Perhaps we should ask ourselves why we started this war." The humans were expanding, yes. They were claiming territory we considered ours. But did they actually attack us? Did they invade our worlds? Or did we simply see them as a potential threat and decide to eliminate them before they became strong? Silence fell across the chamber. No one wanted to admit it, but Keleth was right. Humanity hadn't started this war. The Confederation had. "They've killed thousands of our soldiers," Valthek protested. "They've destroyed hundreds of our ships. You want to just forgive that?" "They killed our soldiers after we attacked their homeworld," Keleth replied. "They destroyed our ships after we tried to conquer them. Every action they've taken has been defensive. Brutal, yes. Horrifying, certainly, but defensive." Another representative spoke up, one of the insectoid Rethek. "I've reviewed the human historical database they broadcast. Do you know what I learned? They've fought wars against themselves that killed more of their own people than we've killed in this entire conflict. They're used to fighting enemies with similar technology. They've spent millennia learning how to win against equal or superior forces. We thought we were fighting primitives. We were actually fighting one of the most warlike species in the galaxy." Valthek wanted to argue, but he couldn't. Everything the Rithek said was true. The Confederation had made assumptions based on humanity's technological level. They had ignored the far more important measure, willingness to fight. "So what do you suggest?" Valtek asked bitterly. "Surrender to them?" "I suggest we negotiate," Keleth replied, "before more die on both sides." On Earth, President Jian waited in the underground command center. She hadn't slept in 30 hours. Around her, military leaders and advisors monitored every communication channel, waiting for the Confederation's response. "Madam President, we're receiving a transmission," her communication officer announced. "It's from the Confederation Council. They're requesting a ceasefire and negotiations." Jian felt relief wash over her, but she didn't let it show. "Put me through to Admiral Daehyun first." The Admiral appeared on screen. "I heard. They want to negotiate. Do you think they're serious?" Jian asked. Daehyun nodded slowly. "I think we scared them enough that they realize they can't win this war without unacceptable losses. But negotiations will be tricky. We need someone who can stand firm while giving them a way to back down without losing too much face." "I'm sending Envoy Minji," Jian decided. She was a diplomat before the war. She knows how to handle this. Minji had been recalled from the colony ship Hope specifically for this task. She was young, only 35. But she had negotiated trade agreements with 3 different alien species before the war. More importantly, she had lost her entire family when the Confederation attacked Earth. She understood both diplomacy and hatred in equal measure. The negotiations took place on a neutral space station that belonged to an independent species not involved in the war. Minji arrived with a small delegation of human advisors. The Confederation sent representatives from all 7 species, led by Kaleth the Kalxir, not Valtek. The choice of representatives spoke volumes about the Confederation's internal politics. They met in a sterile conference room. Minji sat across from Kaleth and the others, studying their faces. She could see fear there. Good, they should be afraid. Let me be clear about something, Minji began, her voice steady. Humanity doesn't want to destroy your worlds. We don't want to kill billions of innocent people. But we will if you force us to. The ships stay in position until we have an agreement. Kaleth nodded. We understand. The Confederation is prepared to withdraw from human space. We will recognize your independence and your territorial claims. In exchange, we ask that you dismantle your planet-killing weapons and agree to certain security measures. What kind of security measures? Minji asked suspiciously. Regular inspections to ensure you're not developing weapons designed to attack our worlds. Limits on your fleet size. Restrictions on how fast you can expand into new territory. Minji's expression hardened. You attacked us. You killed billions of our people. You destroyed our colonies. And now you want to limit our ability to defend ourselves? Are you serious? Your species has proven itself to be extremely dangerous. One of the Rithek representatives interjected. In 3 months, you've caused more damage to the Confederation military than any species has managed in 1,000 years. You've demonstrated a capacity for violence that disturbs us. We need assurances that you won't become a threat in the future. Minji leaned forward. Let me tell you what I think. I think you're afraid. You came to our space expecting an easy victory. You thought you'd crush primitive humans and add our territory to your empire. Instead, we bloodied your nose. We made you pay for every inch. And now you're terrified because you realize we're not weak. We're just mean. She stood up, placing her hands on the table. You want assurances? Here's your assurance. The only reason those planet-killer ships exist is because you threatened us. If you leave us alone, we'll leave you alone. We don't want to conquer the galaxy. We just want to live in peace. But if you ever, and I mean ever, threaten humanity again, we will burn the entire galaxy down. That's your assurance. The room was silent. Then Kaleth spoke. What about the inspection protocols? Surely you can agree to some level of oversight. We'll allow independent observers from neutral species, Minji conceded. Not Confederation inspectors. We'll prove we're not building weapons to attack you. But in exchange, you allow the same observers on your worlds. This has to be mutual. We're not going to be second-class citizens in the galaxy. The negotiations continued for 3 days. Both sides argued over details, made demands, compromised, and argued some more. Finally, they reached an agreement that no one loved but everyone could accept. The Treaty of Titan, named after the space station where it was signed, established the following terms. The Confederation would withdraw all military forces from human space immediately. They would recognize humanity's sovereignty over all claimed territory. They would pay reparations for the destroyed colonies, though both sides knew no amount of money could compensate for the billions dead. In exchange, humanity would dismantle the planet-killer ships and agree not to develop similar weapons. Both sides would allow neutral observers to verify compliance. There would be a demilitarized zone between human and Confederation space. Trade agreements would be negotiated separately. Most importantly, both sides acknowledged that this war had been a mistake. The Confederation admitted they had initiated hostilities without proper justification. Humanity agreed not to seek revenge for the war, though that promise was given through gritted teeth. When Minji returned to Earth, she was hailed as a hero. She had secured humanity's independence without firing another shot. But she didn't feel like a hero. She felt tired and angry and sad for everything that had been lost. She met with President Jion in private. Is this really peace? Minji asked. Or just a pause before the next war? I don't know, Jion admitted. But it's better than what we had. Both sides are exhausted. Both sides are afraid of each other. Maybe that fear will keep the peace. Or maybe it will just give everyone time to prepare for the next fight. 5 years passed. The galaxy slowly returned to normal. Human colonies were rebuilt. The dead were mourned. Trade between humanity and some Confederation species resumed cautiously. Children who had lived through the war grew into adults who remembered but tried to move forward. Admiral Minho, promoted to Fleet Admiral after the war, stood in the orbital shipyard above Earth. Around him, new warships were under construction. Bigger ships, better weapons. Humanity had learned its lesson. Peace was good, but it was only maintained through strength. A young officer approached him. Cadet Jisoo, fresh from the academy, eager to serve. "Sir, why are we still building so many warships?" "The war is over." Minho looked at the young officer, seeing in her the hope and optimism of someone who hadn't lived through the worst of the war. He envied that innocence, but he also knew it was dangerous. "The war is over," Minho agreed, "but the galaxy remembers what happened. The Confederation remembers how close they came to losing their homeworlds. Other species remember how fiercely humanity fought. Some admire us for it. Some fear us. Some hate us." He pointed at the ships under construction. "These ships exist to make sure no one ever thinks attacking Earth is a good idea again. We learned that the galaxy respects strength. So we show strength." They demanded our surrender. Humanity answered with fire. 3 months into the war, humanity was losing. The numbers told a brutal story. The Confederation controlled half of human space. 50 colonies were destroyed or occupied. Earth remained under constant blockade. Supply lines were cut. Food rationed. Billions of humans were dead, and billions more faced starvation. In the underground bunkers on Earth, President Jian reviewed casualty reports that seemed to never end. Her hair had gone gray in just 3 months. She barely slept. Every day brought news of another lost battle, another destroyed colony, another million dead. "We can't sustain this," her military advisor said quietly. "Our fleet is down to 30% strength. Our colonies are falling one by one. Madam President, we need to consider negotiating." "Negotiating what?" Jian asked bitterly. "Surrender? The Confederation has made it clear. Total submission or extinction. Those are our only choices." Admiral Daehyun entered the room, limping from a wound he had received when his flagship was attacked. "Then we choose extinction, but we make them work for it." Despite everything, despite the death and destruction, humans refused to surrender, not because they thought they could win. Most people understood they were probably going to lose. But there was something in human nature, something stubborn and mean that refused to bow. If the galaxy wanted humanity dead, it would have to kill every last human. One by one and across occupied territory, humans were making that task as difficult as possible. Specialist Taijin crawled through a ventilation shaft in the mining colony Titan 7. The Confederation had occupied this world 2 months ago, turning it into a staging ground for their military operations. They thought they had secured it, that the remaining humans were under control. They were wrong. Taijin reached the main power junction and carefully attached explosive charges to the critical nodes. Around the colony, 15 other resistance fighters were doing the same thing. They had spent weeks mapping out the Confederation systems, finding weaknesses, planning the strike. His communication device buzzed softly. Everyone was in position. He pressed the detonator. The entire colony went dark as explosions tore through the power grid. Emergency lights flickered on, but by then it was too late. Confederation soldiers stumbled in the darkness while human resistance fighters struck from every shadow. Small arms fire echoed through corridors. Homemade bombs exploded in barracks. Chaos spread like wildfire. Taijin and his team didn't try to retake the colony. They didn't have the numbers for that. Instead, they caused as much damage as possible, then melted away into the mining tunnels that riddled the colony's underground. The Confederation would spend weeks repairing the damage, weeks when this base couldn't support military operations. This pattern repeated across every occupied world. Humans became ghosts, striking when the enemy least expected it, then vanishing. They sabotaged equipment, poisoned supplies, assassinated officers, and spread fear. The Confederation had conquered the territory, but they couldn't control it. In the orbital station above Mars, intelligence officer Seo Hyun was working on a different kind of weapon. She had gathered a team of psychologists, historians, and media specialists. Their mission was simple and disturbing: show the Confederation exactly who they were fighting. "Are you sure about this?" one of her team members asked, looking at the files they had compiled. "This is going to terrify them. That's the point, Seo-hyun replied coldly. They think humans are just another primitive species. Let's show them the truth. They created a broadcast that would be transmitted on every frequency the Confederation used. It was a history lesson. Images of human wars flashed across the screen. Ancient battles where thousands died in single days. Medieval sieges where cities were burned to the ground. World wars where entire nations mobilized to destroy each other. The broadcast showed atomic bombs falling on cities, chemical weapons choking soldiers in trenches, concentration camps and genocides, every terrible thing humans had done to each other over thousands of years. Not to hide from it, but to make a point, the broadcast ended with a simple message spoken by Seo-hyun herself. This is what we did to ourselves, our own species, people we shared language, culture, and history with. We fought wars that killed millions over resources, religion, and pride. We created weapons specifically designed to make death as horrible as possible. We became very, very good at killing. She leaned closer to the camera. Now imagine what we're willing to do to aliens who threaten our existence. Imagine what we'll do to you. You've seen our brutality in these 3 months of war. You've seen us burn our own colonies rather than let you have them. You've watched us sacrifice ourselves in suicide attacks, and you still don't understand. Her voice grew colder. We're not fighting for victory. We're fighting for revenge. Every one of your soldiers we kill, we consider payment for our dead. Every ship we destroy, every setback we cause you, we count as success. You wanted to conquer humanity. Congratulations. You've made yourself our enemy forever. Even if you win this war, you'll spend the rest of your civilization looking over your shoulder, wondering when humans will come for payback. The broadcast ended. Across the Confederation fleet, alien soldiers watched in growing horror. They had access to their own historical records. They knew their own species had violent pasts, but nothing like this. Humans had spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of killing each other. Now all that experience, all that brutal knowledge was focused on the Confederation. The psychological warfare was working. Morale in the Confederation fleet began to crack. Soldiers questioned why they were fighting. One species in the alliance, the Calxir, a bird-like race known for their peaceful nature, started to openly debate whether this war was justified. These humans haven't attacked any of our worlds, a Calxir representative argued in the Confederation Council. We came to their space. We demanded their surrender. And now we're shocked that they're fighting back violently. What did we expect? But High Arbiter Valthek refused to back down. We're too deep into this war to stop now, he insisted. If we show weakness, if we let humanity survive after their defiance, every other species in the galaxy will question our authority. We must finish this no matter the cost. On Earth, Admiral Daehyun was preparing humanity's final play. In secret laboratories deep underground, scientists had been working on Project Prometheus. The concept was desperate and brilliant. If they couldn't win a conventional war, they would change the rules. They had taken old colony ships, massive vessels designed to carry thousands of people across the galaxy, and retrofitted them with experimental jump drives. These weren't normal faster-than-light engines. These were one-way portals that could teleport anything directly to a specific location. The navigation was crude, and the ships would be destroyed in the jump. But they would get there. And in each ship's cargo hold, they had loaded antimatter bombs, enough antimatter to crack a planet's crust. Daehyun presented the plan to President Ji-yeon in private. We've identified the home worlds of all 7 Confederation species. We have 30 ships ready. We can position them in orbit above their most populated planets. And then we wait. Wait for what? Ji-yeon asked, though she already knew the answer. For them to realize what we've done. For them to understand that if Earth falls, their homeworlds fall too. Mutual assured destruction. The same strategy that prevented nuclear war on Earth for decades. Ji-yeon closed her eyes. This was madness. This was holding billions of innocent aliens hostage. This was terrorism on a galactic scale. But what choice did they have? The Confederation was winning. In another few months, Earth would fall. Humanity would be extinct. How long until the ships are in position? She asked. 2 weeks. We'll use stealth drives and passive sensors. They won't know the ships are there until we want them to know. Do it, Ji-yeon ordered, and pray to whatever gods are listening that this works. Over the next 2 weeks, 30 colony ships slipped through Confederation space like ghosts. They moved slowly, carefully, avoiding detection. Each ship was crewed by volunteers who knew this was a one-way mission. If the plan worked, They would be ordered to stand down. If it failed, they would become history's most devastating weapon. Ship Captain Minji sat in the command chair of Colony Ship Hope, positioned in orbit above the Confederation capital world. Below her, a planet of crystalline beings lived their lives, unaware that a human ship carrying a planet-killing weapon floated above them. She thought about the irony. Her ship was named Hope, and here she was ready to commit genocide if ordered to. But she also thought about Earth, about her family in the bunkers, about every human struggling to survive. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from Admiral Daehyun," her communication officer reported. "Put it through." Daehyun's face appeared on screen, looking older and more tired than ever. "All Prometheus ships, this is Admiral Daehyun. The Confederation has been informed of your presence. They know about the bombs. President Jian is about to make the announcement. Stand by." Across the galaxy, on every communication channel, President Jian's message was broadcast, not just to humans but to every species in the Confederation.